And welcome back, everybody. I am CD3 Daddy.
And I am C3DG Minecraft.
And today we are finally going to bring you the item sorter and shulker loader for our moss video. In addition to the moss, we are also going to be building an item sorter and shulker loader for our fungus farm. We have the exact same height requirements for both of our farms, whether it be moss or fungus. So the build out that we are going to do is going to be virtually identical for both. The only exception is the starting point. The fungus farm is slightly lower to the ground than the moss counterpart. Alright, before we get into the core build of the requirements for the storage system, I do want to go over what an item sorter is real quick. It is extremely important to understand and will make your build a lot easier if you know why you're placing the blocks the way you are. The first thing we're going to talk about is simply the powerhouse behind an item sorter, and that is the hopper. Whenever an item flows over the top of a hopper, whether directly above the hopper outside of a container, or if it passes across a hopper, such as another hopper or a container like a chest or barrel, the hopper will pick up the items. As you can see, I'm terrible at throwing, but whenever the items are above the hitbox of the hopper, they are pulled in. But as soon as a redstone signal is applied to the hopper, it will lock the hopper. A locked hopper simply means that the hopper is no longer pulling items, and it is no longer pushing items. You can place items in a locked hopper, but they will not go anywhere. They are basically a storage container at this point. Once you remove the redstone signal, the items are immediately picked up, and any items that were in the hopper are now pushed into the container below. Likewise, if there is no container below and you load up the hopper, there is nothing for the hopper to push to, even if it's not locked. So the hopper can be locked, and the hopper can act as a container that only pulls depending on the output. So let's talk about this configuration. The top hopper is pushing into a hopper that we can control the state of with a lever, and just like in our first example, there is a chest below it which allows items to flow through. If I throw items into the top hopper, they immediately flow down into the middle hopper and down into the bottom chest. If we supply a redstone signal to it and I throw items on top, the top hopper will actually continue to pick up items because it is not in a locked state, as you can see from my texture pack. But what is happening, the middle hopper is simply collecting the items. So if I drop an entire stack, that whole stack will go down to the middle hopper, but it will not carry on to the chest because it is in a locked state. So again, a hopper that is locked acts as a storage container, neither pulling nor pushing, but you can still push items into it, just like you would a chest. And as soon as you remove the redstone signal, all the items will flow freely down into the rest of your storage. Now, putting that all together, as you can see, we have comparators on the back side. The comparators simply read the quantity of items inside of the top hopper. The first example of this double hopper setup, the hopper is actually pushing items into the locked hopper, which will not work for a sorting system. What we are going to do instead is place the hopper nozzle facing into the comparator, meaning that it is not facing into the hopper that we are going to control the lock state of. So when you throw items into the top hopper, it is not locked, but as you can see this time, the comparator is staying on, and that's because the items are actually staying in the uppermost hopper. They are not flowing down to the bottom hopper, because we don't have the nozzle facing down and the bottom hopper is in a locked state. As soon as we unlock it, the bottom hopper will pull items from the top hopper, and they will funnel all the way down to the storage system. It does not necessarily have to face the comparator. If you had a block on the back, you could technically face this hopper in any direction as long as it is not facing down into the hopper. All right, now let's talk about the comparator system. This is the most important part of an item sorter, is getting your filter set up correctly. I have two hoppers. They are side by side. I have a comparator behind each of the hoppers, and then I have 3 pieces of redstone dust leading into a repeater. The repeaters will toggle the state of a redstone torch, and the redstone torch will either lock or unlock hoppers that are at the end of it. Now, this is just a filtering system that has been spread out to show you all of the components. We'll talk about how we're going to wrap this around into one system here in a moment. But the first hopper, if we open it up and take a peek inside, you'll see that I have 42 wheat seeds. I also have 4 junk items. These can be any item. They don't have to be sticks. They just cannot be an item that will flow across the hopper, because what will happen is when you throw an item on the hopper, this hopper is capable of picking up almost, it's capable of picking up 5 stacks, and we don't even have 1 full stack in it. So there is still over 4.5 stacks of available space left. But since we are clogging it up with junk items, this hopper can either pull sticks or wheat seeds. Likewise, the hopper to the right has moss carpet and once again sticks as my junk item area. As soon as the item reaches 42, and this is the magic number in Donut SMP. If you're playing in a survival world, you could get away with less, but we're not really going to talk about that today. Once the item count reaches 42, that is what triggers the repeater. So if I were to throw in a stack of items, you'll see that the repeater turned on, and that's because it has now exceeded that 42 item limit, which, as you can see, has toggled the state of the redstone torch. Colin, if you wouldn't mind, take half of each of those, the wheat seeds and half of the moss carpet out. And as you can see, once he takes the moss carpet out, the redstone torch turns back on, and then the wheat seeds, that redstone torch turns back on. So putting all of that information that we just talked about together, we now have an item sorter. Your item sorter will have either a water stream going across the top, or alternatively, you could have a row of hoppers going across the top. And let's see, what do I have in here? So I've got moss carpet and I've got wheat seeds once again. And I'm just using redstone as my junk item this time. So Colin, if you wouldn't mind, in this chest, if you could place some moss carpet. Colin's going to place some moss carpet in the chest, and as he does that, you'll see that the items quickly get picked up by the hopper, and it drops down to 24 items. The hopper speed in Donut SMP is 12 items, is a 12 item transfer rate. So every time the bottom hopper unlocks, it's going to pull 12 items. Once the hopper drops below 42, as you can see here, once it drops below 42, and it does that because it is, again, moving 12 items at a time, the redstone torch will turn back on, it will lock the bottom hopper, and one of those sets of 12 items will always be stuck in this bottom hopper, and that's just part of the filter. So each filter will always have 24 to 42 items stuck, or actually rather 24 to 41 items stuck in the top hopper, and the bottom hopper will always have 12 items that are stuck. So that's the amount that you'll have left over, but technically you only need to start off with 1 or 2 items just to make sure nothing else gets in there. And as you throw items into your system, or your farm filters items into your system, they will fill up until you reach that 42 magic number. And again, anything below that will just stay stuck in the hopper. Now, before before we get started, there is one final point that does seem to confuse people as it relates to junk items. Again, it could be sticks, it could be deep slate, it could be redstone. I've seen people use red stained glass. Any item that will not go into your system, that will break it. Because what can happen if I add it, let me just grab a bunch of redstone. If I added a bunch of redstone, it is going to break my item sorter. As you can see, we hit that 40 plus item limit in the second hopper, which pulled out the moss carpet, and now your sorter is completely broken. If you are worried about that happening, this is not a requirement, as most of the time your farms will be isolated from things like storage systems and whatnot. But if you are worried that that could happen to your filter, grab yourself an anvil, throw in some items, and I'm going to call this item filter. And you'll see that it does cost some XP. So you do have to have some XP. If you don't have any in Donut, just buy some XP bottles. And you'll also notice that whether you have a single stack or a full stack, it's going to cost the same. So if you are making filter items, again, you name it whatever you want, just change the name, grab it. Now, if we go to let's use the wheat seeds as an example. So here's my moss carpet, here's my filter carpet. If I remove the sticks and I add filter carpet, if I throw regular carpet on top, it will no longer be pulled into the hopper because the game treats it as 2 different items. The moss carpet has a different name, so it cannot stack with the one called filter carpet. And that is, again, something that does confuse people at times. Totally optional. Typically, I don't do this unless I am building a massive storage system where I am filtering hundreds of items. All right, we are ready to start building it out. Now, the first thing you are going to do is find the item exit. The item exit is built into both of the moss and the fungus farms. And what we are going to do is we are going to grab a fence gate, place it on the first block that is outside of your farm, and we are going to open it. And I have actually already blocked the water off to contain it, so I'm going to leave all those blocks as is. But I am going to swap out the packed ice, or the glass under the trapdoor with packed ice. So the first block that extends past your farm is going to be packed ice directly under your fence gate in the open position. And then I'm going to break out those 2 pieces of glass if you have built that out. Place a piece of soul sand in front, and then we are going to build this tower up 10 blocks tall. So I am going to first place a piece of glass on top of my fence gate. I'm also going to build glass around my soul sand so I can start my bubble column tower. And then we are going to build this up 10 blocks. All right, now for the moss farm, the top block, the 10th block, is going to be level with the block containing your lava. If you have built more than 3 modules, obviously you can extend this higher to match up with the top of your farm, But the build that we are going to discuss is going to be based off of this 10 block tall bubble column. Now, as you can see, I have left a gap. We do need to fill this gap, but I wanted to call out the signs on the back of the pistons. Now, if you were to remove these signs without replacing them with a block, your farm will break because the distance between the two pistons is only 11 blocks. So the piston on the opposite side of the farm will push that piston. As a piston is pushable in the 12th block position, it would exceed the side of the farm, and your farm will break. But as soon as you add a glass block, this glass block becomes the piston is the 12th block, so this actually becomes the 13th block. So even though glass is pushable by a piston, this is the 13th block, which means your farm cannot push that piston out of position. So always make sure there is a block behind it, but you do need to break out the signs so we can build up this back wall. So just do that all the way up, breaking out those signs until we are 10 blocks tall. Right now that you have your bubble column completely encased, we have blocks on all sides. We are going to extend the side towards your farm up 1 block. And we are going to do the same thing on the 2 outer columns for your bubble column. And coming out of your bubble column, we are going to send the items away from your farm. And we are going to build out a total of 3 blocks. So the column will count as block number 1, add block number 2, and block number 3. On the end of block number 3, we are going to add a block of packed ice. Whenever we use packed ice, typically it's because we are going to place some type of barrier and change the direction of the water flow. So go ahead and put a fence gate on top and open it. Fence gate will stop the water, and opening it will allow items to pass through. On the side opposite of where you are wanting to send your items, so in my case, again, I'm going to send it towards the back, towards my crafter. I'm going to build a barrier all the way until I am even with my trap door, or I'm sorry, my fence gate. On the side that I am going to send the items to, I'm going to build out a barrier 1 block shy of the fence gate. Now the reason I'm going to do this is because we are going to item align, and a full block will not allow us to do that. But we're done with this section for now. Let's, Colin, if you wouldn't mind hopping down there and making a bubble column. Now a bubble column does need to have a source block of water all the way from the top down to the bottom. If you don't have access to that many buckets or you don't want to carry that many with you, you can always place a bucket of water on the top and plant kelp on your soul sand all the way up to the top. Kelp will convert flowing water into a source block of water, and then you break the kelp and it becomes a bubble column. You could do this with one piece of kelp at the bottom, and bone meal it until it reaches the top. However you want to do it. We've covered this in many of our videos, so that shouldn't be anything new. Once you get to the top, we're going to place a trapdoor right even with the top of our platform. Items will flow up, and because this trapdoor is waterlogged, the water is flowing, and items will be pushed towards our fence gate. All right, we are over at the root farm. Now, if you are here for the root farm, we are going to swap back to the moss farm in a moment. But after this step, everything is identical, 100%. If you are here for the moss tutorial, you can go ahead and skip past this part. We will come back one final time to talk about the item sorting. But in the meantime, the moss farm, the exit is about right here. It's 2 blocks up, a little bit over. Because of that, we are going to be really cramped when we're working over here. So what we're going to do is we are going to add our packed ice just like we did before. We are going to extend it out 1 block. There will be plenty enough momentum for the items to pass this first block, so we're not going to worry about that. We are going to add a fence gate. Open it. Alright, just like before, we are going to add our soul sand on front, and we are going to start building up our bubble column. Now, unlike the moss farm, we went up 10 blocks, but because we are dropping down 2 blocks, and to keep the tutorials identical, we are actually going to go up 12. So we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, if I counted right. Let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, I got it twice. That must be right. And we are going to do the same thing off the back of the fence gate. And while Colin is doing that, I am going to extend the sides forward 2 blocks. Again, we don't need to add water here. There'll be plenty enough momentum. But we do need to make that a bubble column. So we can go ahead and do that now. I will grab some kelp. So we'll add a water bucket at the top, hop down the bottom, plant it all the way up, and swim down and break it. Once you've broken all the kelp, you will have a bubble column sending you all the way up to the top. Now, just like the moss farm, we are going to build out 3 blocks. So 1, 2, 3. Add packed ice and build up our walls. Whoop. Just like that. We will add our trapdoor and then our fence gate. Once we waterlog our trapdoor, we will have our water flowing to our fence gate. And again, everything beyond this point is identical. So let's get back to the moss farm. Now that we have a bubble column and a way to send our items, we are going to extend out our platform by 1 block. And we are going to add a chest on this block. So Colin, if you wouldn't mind grabbing a chest. And while he's doing that, I'm going to wrap around until I am even with my 2 block gap, right like this. If you have not used an item aligner before, the items will flow out of the farm and they will hit the chest. And as you can see, the chest is not a full block. The item is sitting on the packed ice and the corner of the glass. And we are going to use this to our advantage to do an alignment for our hoppers. But the first thing we're going to do is build this out 2 more blocks in total. Alrighty. Your farm or your item collection should look like this. If you have a 2x2 platform, on the side with the chest, we're going to extend this out 12 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. You are going to need some hoppers. Now, if you have never built an item sorter before, again, this is going to feel a little odd at first, but hopefully we explained it and you watched it at the beginning. We are going to place hoppers into the side of the blocks. Make sure that you are not accidentally into the hopper, because that will not work. So place hoppers all the way along until you have 12 hoppers in total. All right, now let's go ahead and on the back side of your what will be your water stream, opposite of your hoppers, we are going to place glass all the way along the back until we are even with our 12 block item sorter. And our goal is to waterlog this chest. Water flows a maximum distance of 8 blocks. So starting at the chest, we're going to count out 8 blocks. So this will be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So the water will flow to this block. We are going to contain the water, but we need to do it with a block that the items are not going to get stuck on. So again, we can't use a full block because items are going to be aligned in between. Our go-to is iron bars because they sit in between or in the middle of your block, and we just build that all the way. Alternatively, you could use rails, but iron bars are cheaper. They use the same amount of iron, and you don't have to worry about gathering sticks. Alright, Colin, if you wouldn't mind waterlogging that chest for me. And lucky for me, I did count that out correctly, so we now have a water stream going 8 blocks. Now we're going to do the same thing, except we are going to shift over 1 block. So this is going to be iron bars. Technically, you don't have to have this outside section if you don't want it. And you can actually use iron bars on this side. It's going to be an aesthetic choice, however you want to do it. All right, now if we hop over here and we take a look, the water stream is going to act as our top hopper line, so we won't need that. The hoppers that we placed into our glass blocks is the top hopper, so we need to place this third level of blocks. This can be glass blocks. I'll be using solid blocks, but it needs to go down 3 blocks. All right, so to get that third block, in survival, it can be a little tricky without having to build up. My recommendation is to have yourself some scaffolding so you can move around without having to worry about temporary blocks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count down 3 blocks, and you can see I can't quite reach the one that I want. So I'm just going to place a temporary block on the one that I can reach, so 1, 2, 3. This will be the back of the farm, or the back of your item sorter. I'm going to hop up, hop down, and then I'm going to place a solid block. Now this solid block is the back block that you can see the redstone sitting on. I'm going to take my glass once again, and I'm going to count down and build out 2 blocks, placing a solid block like that. So again, from your hoppers, count down 3 blocks, go over and place your back solid block, hop down to it, build over 2 blocks, and place another solid block. From here, we are going to count out 12 blocks. So 1, 2, and I'll just do this a little quicker. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, until you're even with your hoppers. You're going to do this on the back side. And then you're going to add your repeaters. So if you add a repeater, you're going to place it facing your hoppers. So just add them along like this. Now that we have a repeater, we can crouch off the side of our temporary platform, which you can actually leave. And we are going to aim our cursor at the front of our repeater, just like this. And our shape is starting to take form. And once you have your first block placed, you can finish it off. So Colin, if you wouldn't mind carrying that all the way back. While he's doing that, I am going to grab myself a redstone torch. And just like before, you can crouch off the side. And we're going to add a redstone torch on the front of each of these solid blocks. Now, from here, we are going to place solid blocks on top of our redstone torch. Just aim for the hitbox. Once you have your first block, you would carry this out all the way to the end. All right, now we are going to add, again, we're going to add hoppers underneath later, which will be the hopper that we lock, but we are going to do that after we build out our shulker loader. It'll just be easier to get to. So once you have your platform set up like this, we are going to place solid blocks directly in front of our repeaters, 1 block up, and directly behind your repeaters. Now make sure you don't accidentally click your repeaters at any point, or that will break your item filter. They do need to be on a 1 tick. So we are going to encase the repeaters. And then we are going to move to our comparators and redstone. Now, the comparator is going to be looking at the hoppers under our item stream. We're going to hop up on the hopper, place a comparator facing away, so the 2 redstone torches should be up against the hopper and the single torch should be facing away. And we're just going to do this all the way down. And if you did like I did and accidentally clicked it, just click off of it. The next step is super easy. We are going to add redstone dust on every bit of the solid block surface. So go ahead and just add redstone dust all the way around until you have a nice big web of redstone. All right, now we are going to return to our item sorter here in a little bit, but now we are going to shift our focus to the shulker loader that we are going to use to store our filtered items. We are going to build 4 of the 3706 triple hopper shulker loaders. And the reason we wanted to do that is there are a lot of players that are still experiencing the ghosting shulker box issues. And this is a popular shulker loader. So we already showed you a ghost-proof shulker loader in a previous tutorial. However, we did find a way to make these more ghost-resistant as far as the shulker box is concerned. So we are going to build out a little platform, and we're going to start directly under the solid block. So it's going to be the 3rd solid block closest to our water stream, the one that the torch is connected to. So we are going to find that solid block, and we are going to build up 4 blocks. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We are going to build back all the way until we are even with the end. So, whoop, I went a little too far. 12 blocks in total. Now, hop back up on this little platform that you just made, and we are going to start at the first block, and we are going to go over 1 block, and we're going to build 2 blocks towards our water stream. So you should be directly under the hoppers at this point. You're going to skip 2 blocks, place 2 more blocks, skip 2 blocks, place 2 more blocks, and finally skip 2 blocks and place 2 more blocks. I guess technically this one isn't required, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it. We are going to grab some redstone. Now we are just going to draw an outline on the back. I guess you don't need redstone there. I'm just going to do it to show you that you can expand that later if you wanted to. But we are going to add redstone all along every solid block. Once you have your redstone, we are going to grab some solid blocks once again, and we are going to place a solid block on the inside of the furthest redstone dust. Again, this will be lined up directly under the hoppers, and it'll be towards your bubble column. So just crouch, find the hitbox for that redstone dust. If you're having issues with the crouching and placing the solid block on the side of the redstone dust, I just do that to save resources. You can build down if you wanted to. You can leave that. I just think it looks cleaner without it. But once we have this set up, this is going to be the base of our shulker loader. This redstone line is actually going to be for our ghosting shulker box protection. At the end of our redstone dust on the 2 blocks by itself, we're going to hop up and place an observer with the output facing up. We're going to do this on all 4 of the redstone paths, just like you see here. All right, your shulker loader should start looking like this. Now, again, we are building 4 shulker loaders, 4 triple hopper shulker loaders, and this is actually the base where we typically start building this, and hopefully you'll recognize it. I'm going to kind of stay elevated so we can speed this along a little bit, but just know that you will be able to crouch off the side and build this in survival relatively easy. But we're going to place a solid block on the front face of all of the corner blocks. We are going to place a repeater next to our observer facing towards our redstone line on all 4 of the solid blocks next to the observer. Once you have done that, hop back down onto your redstone line and crouch and place another solid block on the front of the repeater. You do have to crouch or you'll just advance the repeater. We want to make sure that this repeater stays on a 1 tick. And as Colin adds the other 3 blocks, I will go ahead and add the second repeater that is going to face the first one and set it to a 4 tick. Now it does need to be a 4 tick or your shulker loader will not work. And Colin has his backwards. He'll figure that out in a second. Crouch, place a solid block above the repeater, off of the top repeater, off of the back of the repeater, and on top of the repeater. Again, be sure to crouch while you're doing it or you'll just advance it. Make sure that this is on a 4 tick, that is very important. And we'll do this for all of the shulker loaders, placing a block in front of the repeater, behind the repeater, and whoop, a little too high there, and on top of the repeater until we have a little boxed in shape around the middle repeater. I am going to opt for the shulker crafter. This is optional. I'm going to place a crafter on the back block facing my observer. I'm going to place a dropper facing the observer. And then I'm going to place a dispenser facing up. Now again, this is optional. If you did not want to craft your shulker boxes, you can simply replace the crafter with a hopper, and that hopper will feed the dropper instead of the crafter. But again, that is optional. Most people ask me how to do the crafting system, so I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate this, but just know that it can be swapped out. Alright, now it's time to add a little bit of redstone. Again, on the back of your shulker loader where your redstone line is, we're going to place a redstone torch underneath the solid block. And as you'll see, whenever I place down the redstone torch, it does light up the redstone line in the back. And that's actually what is going to trigger the dispenser. The observer will fire whenever this lights up. But you'll see in a moment that these will be turned off. So we're going to go ahead and add a redstone torch on the back of each of those. Alright, once you have added your redstone torches, we are going to place 2 pieces of redstone dust on top of the furthest back solid block and the top solid block. We're going to do this all the way down. And we are just going to continue building up. Now the next step, it kind of depends. What I'm going to do, again, I'm trying to make this where it makes the most sense from a survival build. You do need to add another block in front. What I'm going to do is place a redstone dust behind the repeater. I'm going to crouch off of the edge of this, and I'm going to look into the front of the redstone dust and place it like that. And then I'm just going to run it all the way in front of each of my shulker loaders. If you wanted to build up with temporary blocks or however you choose to do it, that's perfectly fine. Again, the way we do it isn't necessarily the only way or the correct way. It's just the way that I think is easiest to explain. Once we have redstone dust on the block in front of our repeater and we have a block in front, just carry it up one more block, just like this. Alright, now we are going to start adding the mechanism that will break the shulker boxes. Before we do that, we're going to go ahead and add a hopper into the back of each of the crafters. Now is a good time to do that. And then facing the hopper, we're going to crouch and place a piston. Now, if you do it the way I did it, it will push you off. So probably best to do it in front, like that. So just add a piston in front of each of the hoppers. If they are in the correct position, they will fully extend over the dispenser, and that is what will break the shulker boxes. Now the next step is to add a dropper directly in front of the dispenser on the solid block next to our redstone dust. Place a dropper facing forward all the way across. Oh, I guess we'll add one more solid block. Just like that. And then we'll add a solid block on top of each of the droppers. And you will know that your build is correct if when you add a redstone torch off the side of the solid block above the redstone dust, your piston retracts. We're going to do this for all of our shulker loaders. And you'll see, as I said previously, the back redstone torches will be powered off. And every time a shulker loader fires, it will trigger an update for the adjoining shulker loaders. So if any of them have ghosted, as long as one of them is operational, it should correct the other ones. All right. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually add shulker boxes on top of the dispensers. Colin, if you wouldn't mind doing that for me. I'm going to get my hoppers ready. Now, I go ahead and add the shulker boxes right away. You could use temporary blocks, but we're going to add them back anyway, so you might as well add them now. And we're going to crouch, and we're going to add hoppers into the sides of each of the shulkers. And we're going to do it on the opposite side, so both sides. And then on top of your shulker boxes. Just like that. Now, whenever the shulker box breaks, it is going to be pushed forward, and we want it to end up in the dropper. So we're going to crouch and place a hopper into the dropper. We're going to do this on all of our shulker loaders. So Colin, if you could finish that side. And to make sure that the shulker box doesn't pop off in a direction that the hopper can't pick up, we're going to face a hopper into the hopper going into our dropper. And we're going to place it into the hopper on the opposite side. And then we're just going to alternate these back and forth on each of our shulker loaders. Once you have added the hopper, you'll notice that it is currently in a locked state. You don't have to worry about that because when the shulker loader is full, it will actually power the redstone torch off and the shulker box will be pulled through it. So that is perfectly normal for this to be locked. Just know that that will work just fine. But what is going to be a little counterintuitive is we're actually going to place a redstone dust on top of it. We're going to do this on all of them. So the hopper directly in front of the redstone torch. Place that redstone dust. And then we're going to place a comparator facing into the solid block, looking into our shulker box. Just like that. We are going to do this on all of our shulker loaders. This will tell the system not to break the shulker box until the shulker box is 100% full. Colin just pointed out that the hoppers next to the shulker loaders do look like they are still locked going into the shulker box. They're actually not locked. If you provide a block update, it will show that they are working. Matter of fact, we can actually add an item into the hopper. You'll see that it is locked, but as soon as you block update it, it will flow into, and I probably shouldn't have done that because now it's in the shulker box. Colin, would you mind breaking that and getting that out? But as soon as we add another block next to it, it will unlock it. The reason it was temporarily locked, it's because we added a redstone dust, which powered it, and then we redirected the redstone dust. So it was no longer powered, but it still thought it was powered. It's just a quirkiness of redstone. But as soon as we build up, that will be unlocked, so you don't need to worry about that. All right, now the next step, the hoppers that contain our filter items. Again, they are facing into the glass block, so they will never push items down, so we have to pull them down. So we're just going to crouch and place a hopper into it, which will force the nozzle to go straight down. Make sure you don't accidentally face it into the solid block. That's not what we want. We want it to face down. So just crouch and place a hopper into each of the hoppers. Just like that. And as you can see, and if you have built this correctly, and if you didn't fall off, you will see that our hoppers for our shulker loader is perfectly in line with our item sorter. So all we are going to do is we are going to walk up some storage and connect it. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to use barrels. I would advise using barrels, especially on the two bottom hoppers, to make sure that the shulker box is contained and doesn't clip up through it. So that is one recommendation that we make. Barrels have a full hit box, whereas another hopper or a chest does not have a full 1 meter block hitbox. Now, directly above the barrels, we are going to need hoppers. So go ahead and add hoppers on top of each of the barrels. And the rest is kind of up to you. I am going to opt for more storage, so if my shulker box, if my shulker boxes run low, I'm not going to immediately break because I don't have anywhere for the items to go. So I'm going to go ahead and just elevate that storage a little more, and I'm going to add more barrels in between the hoppers, just like that. And I'm going to add a barrel on top of the middle hoppers. And unfortunately, right here, you are going to need a hopper into the barrel. If you don't want to see that hopper locked, you could actually reverse that and do it like this. Actually, Colin, I think I like that look better. Let's swap all that. Let's swap that out. We'll just do barrel. We'll just make that easy. Barrels all the way across the top, and hoppers all the way along the middle, and then barrels next to the hopper going into the shulker boxes. Yeah, I like that look a lot better. All right. Now, the way we are going to set this up, we are going to have items filtered in the first 3 hoppers, the second set of 3 hoppers, the third set of 3 hoppers, and the fourth set of 3 hoppers. So each of your shulker loaders is going to load a different item. The way I'm going to do my storage system, you can completely customize this. You can send this to an item stream if you don't want it right here. It's completely up to you. But there's not that many excess items outside of the moss blocks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a double chest in front of my droppers, and I'm going to face them to my right, or opposite of the redstone torch. If you go to the left, this redstone dust will lock the hopper, which you'll see here in a second. And then I'm going to add a double chest directly in front of that redstone dust, and I'm going to connect it with a hopper. If you did the opposite direction, again, your hopper would be locked by this redstone dust. And then I'm just going to zigzag it all the way down. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to build a row of chests, and then I'm going to alternate which direction the chest flows. And then I'm going to connect all of my double chests with a hopper. Just like that. So anytime a full shulker box is dispensed, it will flow down the chests and always land at the bottom, which is a little bit better for your storage. That way when you're selling it, you open it up, you take it out, you sell it, and by the time you get done, your shulker boxes have filtered all the way down, and you don't have to worry about chests containing 2 or 3 extra shulker boxes. And I'm just going to do this on all 4 of my shulker boxes, or shulker loaders. Alright, now that we have our storage system for our sorted items, we are going to move to the moss blocks. Now we're going to do things a little different there. Before we do, I'm going to go ahead and grab some glass blocks, and I'm just going to cap off the top next to my comparators, and then we can actually jump down and do our item sorter. So the first 3 hoppers I'm going to make identical. I'm going to put 5 junk items. You can rename them if you wish. The first 3 I'm going to place seeds in. I'm going to do seeds in the first hopper, in the second hopper with 4 junk items, and in the third hopper with 4 junk items. After the first 3, I'm going to place 4 junk items, and then I'm going to do moss carpet. So moss carpet in the second 3. And then I'm going to, and you don't have to do it in this order. This is just the order I prefer it. I'm going to do flowering azaleas. And then finally, I'm going to do azaleas. And our item filter and our shulker loader is complete. Again, we will come back to the shulker shells and the chests later. Before we do that, we are going to build out the moss loader system. All right, now the next step is to add our water so we can turn it, because we're going to build a second storage system, and I'm just doing this to conserve space. You could continue it out in a straight line if you wished, but I'm going to go ahead and grab some packed ice, and I'm going to place a block of packed ice directly in front of my hopper, because that is where my water stream is going to be. And then I'm going to place a block of glass next to that and make a 2x2 platform. So Colin, if you wouldn't mind adding some water into that, or on that hopper. Whenever you exit and need to turn, it does need to be too wide. So what we are going to do is we are going to place a double chest on the back. And we are going to carry around our backmost glass barrier, just like that. And we are going to place a fence gate on the packed ice. As always, whenever we have packed ice, we're almost always going to put a fence gate on top of it and open it. That is so the items can pass through freely without the water flowing. Now we will get back to this in a moment, but we will be waterlogging the left side of the chest. But before we do, we're going to continue building out our platform. So I'm going to build, I believe, I'm going to go 5 total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 2 wide. I want to be 1 block past the back of my item sorter, because we're going to have some hoppers down there, and we don't want them to interfere with each other. And I'm going to just carry this over so that when we add our water, there is no possibility that I mess up all of my item sorting. All right, we are ready to start building our second set of shulker loaders. We're going to start off the same way. We are going to, just like we did over here, we added 12 additional glass blocks to be next to our hoppers. So I'm going to do the same thing here. In front of my double chest, I'm going to build out 12 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I'm going to go ahead and carry my back glass block barrier all the way. Now, we are not going to be building an item sorter for the moss blocks. The reason is we are already filtering out the 4 additional items that are not moss blocks. And because we are filtering out those items, only moss blocks will be continuing down if you built this right and you have enough item sorter capacity. If you still have items that are making it past your item sorter, because you have built more modules or you have multiple farms, you may need to do more than 3 items per. Or if you're finding that your seeds are not filling up, but your azaleas are overfilling, you can play around with it. Typically, 3 items will be enough to handle it. And we're actually going to give you a tip at the end of this that will make this even easier. But we will get to that once we're done building the shulker loader. So the first thing we're going to do is hop down like we did before, and we're going to find the corner of our item stream. Once you have found the corner of your item stream, we're actually going to walk towards it 1 block. We're going to look down and we're going to build up 7 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We are going to build the same pattern that we did on our first shulker loader. However, we are building up 7 blocks because we don't have to account for the 3 blocks of the item sorter. So we can build the shulker loader a little bit higher and give our storage space even more storage. Because I started in a little bit of a different position, the pattern is going to be the same. We're going to build back 2 blocks. We're going to build over 2 blocks. And on the 3rd block, we're going to build forward 2 blocks. So it's going to be 2 blocks, 2 blocks, and then 2 blocks. We're going to do this 4 times. We're going to build 4 shulker loaders. And your pattern will look like this. Again, it's the same one that we saw down here. Just like on the first level, we are going to add redstone dust on the back of all of your solid blocks. And once we have done that, we are going to place a solid block off of the side of the redstone dust, just like we did before. Once again, we are going to grab our observers, and we are going to place observers into the redstone dust next to those solid blocks. Now we are going to go through this a little quicker since we just built one. Everything after this is identical. We're going to place repeaters next to the observers. We are going to extend out these solid blocks. In the back of the repeaters, we're going to place solid blocks. So Colin, if you want to do those 2, I'll do these 2. On top of the solid block, we are going to place a repeater on a 4-tick facing the lower repeater. Surround your repeater with solid blocks. And actually, I just realized we are going to have to extend this out 1 more so the redstone torch can hit it. So I'll go ahead and add that redstone dust there. Once you have your repeater surrounded, I am going to grab my crafters and my droppers and dispensers. So I'm going to add a crafter, dropper, and dispenser. Alright, your shulker loader should look like this if you are following along. Again, I added that last solid block to get under my redstone torch. I'm going to add redstone dust into the back of each of the repeaters, and then I will add a solid block into the back of one of the redstone dust and carry it over all the way in front of each of the dispensers. We are going to add a dropper in front of each of the dispensers with a solid block on top. You are then going to connect the redstone dust to the side of the droppers. We are going to move on to the pistons and the hoppers. So add a hopper to your crafter and add a piston in front of the hoppers. Now you'll notice that the piston did not extend this time, and that's because we did not power it first. Again, the order does not matter. I'm going to go ahead and add the redstone torches behind the solid blocks that are behind the 4-tick repeater. So the redstone torch behind that. We're going to add redstone dust on top of both solid blocks next to our piston and hopper. You'll see that that does extend the piston. So we see that all of the redstone is working. And like before, we will add a redstone torch to the side of the solid blocks that are above your dropper. Make sure the redstone torch is above the redstone line and not on the opposite side. And if you have done that correctly, your pistons will be retracted, and we are ready to move on to the shulker boxes. While Colin is getting the shulker boxes out, I'm going to go ahead and add the hopper into the back of each of the droppers. And I will extend that in both directions to make sure that those shulker boxes are picked up. And with our shulker boxes, I'm going to go ahead and add the hopper to all 3 sides, the top, left, and right side. I'm going to add my comparator first this time. See if that makes a difference with that hopper locking. And then we'll add redstone dust on top of the comparator. Yep, and because we are not powering the hopper, it never locks it, so you shouldn't have to worry about it. Again, you have to put the barrels on top, but it's good to note. All right, let's grab our barrels. Again, we use the barrels because of the hitbox. So we are going to add barrels on each of the lower hoppers. This time, we are just going to do another layer of hoppers, but they all need to be facing down. So grab your hoppers, hop back on top of where your water stream is going to be, and just add a line of hoppers all the way. Just like that. I'm going to go ahead and add glass as a barrier for my water, and I'm going to add it all the way to the end. And then I will cap it off just like that. Now, if you wanted to add more shulker loaders, again, if you had a larger farm, you can just continue building this out in the same direction. If you wanted to wrap it around and do it on the opposite side of your item sorter, you can do that too. This is, again, not how you need to do it. It's just a recommendation on how you can do it. All right, because we are much taller and there will be far greater quantity of moss blocks than the rest of it, we are going to build this a little different. We're going to start off the same. I'm going to add 2 double chests, or a single double chest, 2 chests to make a double chest. Say that 5 times fast. And then I'm going to extend it out towards my redstone dust, just like I did the first time. And I am going to grab my hoppers, and I'm going to connect them like so. Now what I am going to do, and actually Colin, if you want to start building that out, I'll show them what we have already done. Now this is the one that we've already built out. Colin is finishing up our example. Because we are filling the entire storage system on this side with shulker boxes full of moss blocks, we don't want the first shulker loader to fill up the storage separately from the rest of it. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a hopper line that sends the items over to the furthest chest, which will be in line with the furthest shulker loader. And the reason we want to do that is if this one fills up fastest, which it would because it gets the moss blocks cross over it first, we want to make sure that there is a place for them to go when the double chests fill up. So we are going to switch back to our old tried and true design of hopper spam, quite frankly, on the back of the chests. The reason we did it differently up here is because we have 4 distinct items and they don't need to share storage space. So that's why we're doing that. Did you know that less than 10% of the people that watch our videos are subscribed? If you find this video or any other video helpful, please consider subscribing, like the video to let us know that this is content that you enjoy, and ring the bell for future notifications so you don't miss any of our new upcoming videos. Also, a huge shout out to our VIP supporters over on Discord, Clerksick and AJ. Thank you so much for supporting us. It means a lot. All right. Now, again, one thing to note, you want to make sure that your hoppers are facing away from your first shulker loader or the filled shulker boxes. Once they completely fill your first 2 chests, will have nowhere to go, and your dropper will have nowhere to dispense them. So just be mindful of that. All right, your system is pretty much complete. We do have a few more things as far as the shulker crafter is concerned before we finish our item stream. The most tricky aspect of this is making sure that you don't cross hopper lines. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a double chest, and you could have done this before, but I wanted to explain all of this together. We are going to add a double chest to the top of the hopper going into your crafter. We're going to add a hopper into the crafter and add another double chest on top of that. Now, one double chest will hold your shulker shells, and the other double chest will hold your chests. That is what is required for crafting. So Colin, if you could grab some shulker shells. What I'm going to do, I'm going to open up the crafter, and I'm just going to do a stack of chests right in the middle, and I'm going to disable all the slots on the left and the right side, and I'm just going to put a stack of double chests in the middle. And I'm going to do this on all of my crafters, placing a stack of chests in the middle, disabling all the slots on the left and the right. All right. Once I have added the chest into the middle, any items that I place in the double chests after the fact will flow to the 2 remaining slots. So this is where you would grab your shulker shells, and you need to pick which double chest you want to be your shulker shells, whether it's the upper or the lower. It does not matter which one it is. You just need to remember which they are, because they do need to be the same on all of them. So Colin, go ahead and pick a double chest and add a bunch of shulker shells into one of them. All right, so he has added a bunch of shulker shells, and you will see that they are now filling in the bottom and top slots that are remaining, which is the recipe for a shulker box. So our crafter is ready to craft as soon as this shulker box is broken. Now, what I mean about not crossing, we are going to add a hopper line that will meet on the outside that we can put our shulker shells and our chests into to fill all of them. Before we do that, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing on this side. We're going to add double chests. And Colin, if you want to finish that for me and then do the crafting recipe. All right, for the hopper line, to add shulker shells and chests to your shulker loader crafter, on the bottom chest, I am going to add 2 hoppers on the side closest to your bubble column. So the side furthest away from the corner. I'm going to do the same thing for the top chest, except I'm going to do it on the left side. So one side will be, or they'll both be 2 hoppers out. One will be on the top left and one will be on the bottom right. I'm going to do this for all of my chests. Whoop. Now the reason we want to go 2 out is because the top hopper is going to need to be fed by running underneath the solid blocks. So you do have to go underneath for that. We need to go out 2 blocks for the bottom one because we had to go out 2 blocks for the top one, so there is no space. And the reason we needed to go left, or top left and bottom right, is if you did both at the bottom, anything from the top hopper line will be pulled down. So this just keeps the hopper paths from crossing, so you don't get chests in your shulker shells and you don't get shulker shells in your chests. All right, now the same thing applies on the on this shulker loader. We want to make sure that the hopper lines don't cross. So again, you got to make sure that if you pick the top double chest to be your chests, well, that didn't work out too well. If you pick your top shulker or your top double chest to be your chests, on the moss side, you also want to make sure that the top double chest is where you put your chests. Once you have identified that, you are going to place your hopper into the side this time instead of off the back. We have this elevated up a little higher. So place a single hopper into the side of your double chests, and then add a hopper into the final hopper, and make a hopper line all the way across, just like this. And you are going to run it all the way back until we are level with the hopper line from your lower system. And we are going to connect it just like that. And then we're going to add 1 hopper off to the side, where we will place a double chest just as a placeholder. I'm not going to go over water streams or how to add. That's kind of outside the scope of this video on how to get chests into there quickly. But that is just one way. So this will be where you add your chests. So any chest that you throw into here will flow into the item sorter side first, and then fill up and go into your shulker loader, or your moss shulker loader side. And you can probably guess we're going to do the same thing for the bottom side. So we're going to add hoppers to our shulker shell double chest, or whichever one you determined that to be. We're going to run this back until we are even with it. We are going to bring that up just like that. And you can either bring it all the way up to where your chests are side by side, or you could actually do it right here. Again, I'm going to leave that up to you on how to do it, but just know that the way I currently have it, all of my chests are loaded in my first double chest, and all my shulker shells are loaded in my back double chest. So I guess for consistency, we will go ahead and do the same thing we did on the top one. Just add your hoppers all the way across. Whoop, whoop. I've got a hopper line behind me. And connect it like that. Make sure that your hopper is facing towards your hopper line. If you left it pointing down, then it would never get over here. So those do have to be facing over. Always be conscientious of where your hoppers are facing, and know that the hierarchy is the hopper below will always take precedence over the one above it. So these will have to fill up before it will continue on. But that is, again, I'll leave that up to you to play around with. All right, the last and final step before we turn our farm on is to waterlog the left side of our double chest. You don't want to waterlog both of them because then you'll have water that is not flowing. So crouch and waterlog the left side. As the items skate between the 2 blocks, they will go and they'll hit the double chest, and just like I did, the items will hit that moving water. Since they are item aligned, they will always hit the moving water. You don't have to worry about this empty spot, but we need the empty spot. If we were to place a solid block here, or a full block, then the items will clip on this corner and get stuck. So that just keeps that from happening. And then we're going to do like we always do. We're going to walk this back 8 total blocks. So the chest is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Switch to the other side. You can add your water if you don't want to count. That's kind of how I do it when I'm being lazy. And then finally, just like that. All right, now before we show you the storage system, I did say there was one final thing that you can do to your moss farm to make sure that your item sorting is easier. When you bone meal moss, you get all kinds of items. You get, oh, this is perfect. You get azaleas, flowering azaleas, carpet, and the tall grass will sometimes produce seeds, leaving you with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items to sort. That is a lot that you need to sort. Now, the majority of it, as you can see, is going to be moss blocks. The rest of it just comes with each bone meal, but the majority is moss blocks. However, to make this easier, if you replace the moss block with a pale moss block, and when bone meal is applied, you only get 3 items. You still will get the occasional seed from your grass. You will get carpet, and you will get pale moss blocks. So, if you are happy with the items that you're getting, you can stick with moss. If you want your item sorting to be easier and your life more simple, let's switch out the moss blocks with pale moss blocks. They are both the exact same in auction, or in slash sale. All right, grab yourself a pickaxe. We are going to climb up into our system, open your trap door, mine out until you get to your moss block. Place a pale moss block in the center over your dispenser. Do the same thing on as many levels as you have, crouching to make sure that you can place the pale moss block on your dispenser. Climb back down, close your trap door so your items don't fall out. And we are going to adjust our item filters. Now, this is almost unless you have just a ton of farms, this is almost a surefire way that you're never going to have items go into your moss storage. So we are going to use seeds on the first 6 instead of the first 3. So I'm just going to, oh, that one already went down because I put too many in there. So on the first 6, we're going to do seeds, and then on the last 6, we are going to do pale moss carpets. So I'm going to do pale moss carpet, pale moss carpet, pale moss carpet, all the way down until I get to my seeds. So now I just have 2 items that I'm sorting, and we are ready to turn the farm on. All right. Now, just like the moss farm, we do have a recommendation for the fungus farm on which version of Nylium to use. Depending on what you're wanting, there are differences between the warped Nylium and the crimson Nylium. When you bone meal warped Nylium, you can get all kinds of warped materials, but what you will typically get is warped roots, warped fungus, but there's also a chance of getting crimson roots and crimson fungus. Very small chance. The vast majority will be these 2 items, but you will have crimson roots and crimson fungi messing up your item sorter. But you will also get the occasional twisting vine from bone mealing warped Nylium. When you bone meal crimson Nylium, you get almost exclusively crimson roots and crimson fungus. You will still get the occasional warped fungus, but the vast majority is crimson roots, so you only have to filter out the 2 lesser items, which is the crimson fungi and the warped fungi. And just like the moss farm, we'll just work our way from right to left. Actually, Colin, if you want to do warped fungi over there, I'll do crimson over here. I am just going to add, oh, it doesn't matter. I'm going to add 4 junk items. And I'm going to add, which one did I tell you, warped or crimson?
You said warped.
Okay, so I'll do crimson. All right. Now that our shulker loader is operational, we have our item sorter. There is always the chance that an item is going to make it past your item filter. There is a real easy way, especially if you swap out to pale moss block, a real easy way to help mitigate that. After you run the farm for a little bit, you can collect some of the pale moss carpet and some of the seeds. And if you add 1 item into your inventory, or 1 item in each of your inventory slots, and I just split it up 50-50, and then you add yourself 2 glass blocks. I'll just do 4 to make it go all the way across. What this will do, you can actually AFK your farm from within the item stream. You can still load in your farm, and you can sit here and all of the pale moss blocks will go right past you because you don't have any room in your inventory. But if an item does make it past your item sorter, your inventory will have plenty of space to pick up only those 2 items, and you won't have to worry about your shulker loader breaking or your items getting clogged in the shulker boxes. So that is one thing that we have implemented ourselves, just to make sure that items don't get by. Now that was more likely when there were 4 items to filter out, but switching over to pale moss blocks, that does not seem to be an issue. Obviously we have more hopper capacity, but this is just a fun, or an easy way. It's fun to see all the items go by you, but it's an easy way to add a little extra item protection.